Hi everybody, and welcome to another encouragement from the Psalms. And today we're in my new favourite Psalm, number 107. It begins, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, his love endures forever." So why should we give thanks to the Lord? Because of his goodness and because of his faithfulness. And the rest of the Psalm kind of reveals his goodness and his faithfulness. It says, "Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story." There's a great song. I'll post a little YouTube link underneath it, a really beautiful modern song, which I love, which sings, "Let the redeemed of the Lord say so." I'm not singing the rest of it because that's absolutely terrible, but there's been a lot of songs based on this verse. Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. In other words, if you've been blessed by God, if you've been rescued by God, if you've been redeemed by God, give testimony to it. Those he redeemed from the hand of the foe. If you're a Christian, you have been redeemed from the hand of the foe. You really have. Those he gathered from the lands, east and west, north and south. Isn't it amazing? Those of us that are Christians, that we have been redeemed of the Lord. We have been redeemed from the foe. And we've been gathered from all over the world, to be people of his choosing. Amazing story. Of course we should sing. Of course we should tell our story. And it goes through, it's a fascinating psalm, this. It goes through 4 scenarios, 4 types of being from which God redeemed us and rescued us and won us from and gathered us from. And there's 4 written down here. And the fascinating thing is, in each of the 4, the turning point is when we cried out to the Lord in our trouble and he delivered us. And in each of them, the encouragement is verse 8, 15, 21 and 31. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for mankind. The first scenario is some people were lost, wandering in desert wastelands, finding no city they could settle, hungry, thirsty, lives ebbing away. Then they cried out, and then God delivered them. Verse 7, he led them by a straight way to a city where they could settle. It says, let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for mankind, for he satisfies the thirsty and fills the hungry with good things. So if you were a person that was lost and God found you, then sing, shout, give testimony. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so. Second bunch of people were people who weren't lost, they were enslaved. Now they're definitely enslaved because of choices of their own making. They're sin slaves. They're enslaved by their own sins. Some sat in darkness, in utter darkness, prisoners suffering in iron chains. Why? Because they rebelled against God's commands. They despised the plans of the Most High. So they're subjected by him to bitter labour, stumble, no one to help. Then here's the defining moment for these sin slaves. They cried to the Lord in their trouble, and he saved them from their distress. He brought them out of darkness, the utter darkness, broke away their chains. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for mankind. Again, let the redeemed of the Lord say so. If you were lost, sing and tell. If you were a slave and now you're free, sing and tell. I love this, verse 16. For he breaks down gates of bronze. He cuts through bars of iron. Here's the amazing thing. No matter how locked up you are, if you cry to the Lord, he can break down gates of bronze. He can cut through bars of iron. Nothing can stop this unstoppable God when he wants to release and free someone who cries out to him. Then the next thing is sick. And these people are definitely sin sick, because some became fools through their own rebellious ways, suffered affliction, so sickness because of their iniquity. So it's not just sick people, these are particularly sin sick people. Remember, addictions are misplaced worship, okay? Every idol eventually breaks the heart of its worshipper. So there's a sickness here, and they're loathing all food. In other words, they're devouring the very thing that's making them sick, and they don't want things that are good for them. They're drawn near to the gates of death. But listen, then they cried to the Lord in their trouble. He saved them from their distress. It's always the turning point, crying out to the Lord. And listen to this. He sent out his word and healed them. He rescued them from the grave. It reminds me of in the Gospels where, remember the centurion with the sick servant? And he says, listen, I'm not worthy for you to even come to my house, Jesus, but only say the word and she will be healed. I mean, it's such faith, but this is the basis for the faith, because he can send out his word and bring healing. He can rescue them from the grave with just a word. What should we do in response to a God that saves us when we're lost, saves us when we're slaves, saves us when we're sin sick? Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for mankind. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so. Then the next one, I'm glad of this, because the next one is people who are in a storm. But there's nothing here that suggests that the storm is like a Jonah storm, a storm of our own making. It's not a storm that's to do with our sin, but it's a storm nonetheless. And these people are in a storm. Some went out on the sea in ships, verse 23. They were merchant on the mighty waters. They saw the work of the Lord and the wonderful deeds in the deep. For he spoke and stirred up a tempest that lifted high the waves. They mounted up to the heavens and went down to the depths. In other words, it's a real rocky storm they're in. In their peril, their courage melted away. They reeled and staggered like drunkards. They were at their wits' end. Hey, have you ever been in a storm and you were at your wits' end? Okay, like a storm, like a pandemic, like a worldwide pandemic, or some other kind of storm, and you're at your wits' end and you're staggering around because there's nowhere firm to put your feet. What should you do? Here's an idea. Cry out to the Lord in your trouble. And what does he do? He brings us out of our distress. And listen to this. Does this not remind you of the gospel again? You know, a storm, not of their own making. They cry out to Jesus asleep in the bowels of the ship. And what does he do? He stills the storm to a whisper. The waves of the sea were hushed. What does he say to the sea? Be quiet. Be quiet. And they were glad when it grew calm, and he guided them to their desired haven. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for mankind. Let the redeemed of the Lord share their story. And then verses 33 to 42 says something really simple when you actually boil it down. So listen to it. He turned rivers into a desert, flowing springs into thirsty ground, fruitful land into salt waste because of the wickedness of those who lived there. Right? So that's bad. Rivers to desert. But listen to this. He turned the desert, verse 35, into pools of water, parched ground into flowing springs. There he brought the hungry to live and founded a city where they could settle. Here's the point. God has the power to change things. God's the power to change things. The essence of Christianity, David Wilkerson says, is transformation. He's got the power to change things. If you're lost, he can find you. If you're enslaved, he can free you. If you're sick, he can heal you. If you're in a storm, he can hush it. He has the power to change things. Verse 43 is the perfect ending. Let the one who is wise heed these things and ponder the loving deeds of the Lord. So in other words, please learn from these four stories. What do you do if you're lost, enslaved, sick, or in a storm? Here's what you do. Cry out to God. Cry out to God. And he's got the power to change things. And you know, when he does what he does and changes things, when he does what he does and changes things, here's what you need to do. Tell your story. Give him glory. Give him praise. Raise a song. Tell the story to everybody for his glory, and so that others know what to do when they're lost, when they're enslaved, when they're sick, and when they're in a storm. Here's what you do. You cry out to God because he's got the power to change things. Folks, I can tell you, in my life, God changes things. I've just literally come off the phone and heard a mighty story of how God changes things. And he's changing things every day for people who cry out to him. So do it. Cry out to him. And even better, I'm going to set you a challenge now. If you're listening to this now and you've had the experience of being lost, enslaved, sick, or in a storm, and God's redeemed you and saved you and changed things, underneath this video, in the comments, be as vague or specific as is appropriate. But let the redeemed of the Lord share their story. Share your story underneath. Take a bit of time just to give him glory and give him praise. I pray that's a blessing to you. I pray you love Psalm 107 as much as I do. The Lord be with you. Have a great day. Speak to you soon.